Hello, this is Daffard. And the other day, I was reading some blogs, some historical blogs. I like my history, and I was reading through on some American history. I thought I'd spiff myself up on it. They're kind of like a long-lost doctor who never came back, and we don't really want them to come back because they're bigger than us now, and we just don't have enough room at the table to feed them. They're kind of hungry people, Americans. Sorry, the radio was getting a little bit fuzzy. I was trying to spiff myself up on the American history. I come across a fellow. His name was Alexander Hamilton, who was actually a founding father over there, apparently. And he had some interesting ideas. Sure, he did. He really liked us. He was a fan of Britain. He kind of wanted to make a mini Britain, and which would later become a bigger Britain. But that's neither here nor there. It's there, not here. But either way, neither here nor there is a weird saying, because most of the time when you're saying it is somewhere else, it's not here. So people should just leave it as neither here. Except not neither. That doesn't matter, or that's not here. Just a little critique on that phrase and how it doesn't make sense. Anywho, what was I saying? Alexander Hamilton. Well, here's the deal. I think historians shouldn't try to project a view that isn't substantial upon figures in history. For instance, there were certain historians who were looking at Alexander Hamilton, very far removed from him, modernly like historians, and who were looking at personal letters to some people that he knew, other men, and they came up with the conclusion, out of the middle of nowhere, out of somewhere, their brains come up with this idea somewhere in them that, well, maybe Alexander Hamilton was a homosexual. And I thought to myself, well, that's ridiculous. So I went and read the letters. And my first thought after reading them was, well, by goodness, of course he was a homosexual. He writ like a woman. But then I thought, well, maybe that's offensive. Not all homosexuals are women. I mean, they're not. Let's just move on. I think the grammar and the way of writing was much different then, so my understanding of what he was talking about was very small. In fact, I didn't really know what he was saying. That's how small it was. And I wondered how this historian knew, since he can't be any more educated than me, can he? No. Well, yes, he could. He could be. He might be a historian, actually, since he was a historian. And he was viewing him as a homosexual just based on these letters and their affection, apparently. I couldn't tell. Maybe it was affection, if that's what you want to call it. I feel like I'm a lot more affectionate to a lot of things now that I have read that letter. Not that I mean to be, but I just don't like it that they're trying to psychoanalyze historical figures that are very distant from themselves. They're not able to really analyze, they're not able to talk, they're only able to view documents and come up with a conclusion based on their own preconceived notions of that analysis, and you know what I'm trying to say. So, that's just a little note here. I like my history, but I don't like you interpreting it for me in a way that completely ruins the character. Now, it didn't really ruin Alexander Hamilton for me, because I didn't know much about him, actually. So I guess I'll always think of him as a homosexual that wasn't really a homosexual, but only to people who like to analyze him too much. Parlay. So anyways, that's just a side note, and I hope you enjoyed this little blip from what I'm thinking, blip from my brain, that's what I call it. Dafford's blips from his brain. Talk to you later, I hope, and you too. Okay, bye.